Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. In today's special episode, we sat down with Fleming, CEO of intelligence and security strategy firm Black Ops Partners. He sheds light on what the recent reports on TikTok monitoring keystrokes means, what information TikTok is gathering, and what the Chinese regime can do with that. Let's dive in. Casey, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
So TikTok is back in the spotlight, this time over reports that it can kind of track keystrokes when you're on websites. So what exactly does that mean? What is TikTok getting?
Well, TikTok is an app on your phone, as we all know. And when you're actually doing keystrokes, you're typing each letter, each number. Those are being recorded back in China and under the supervision of the Chinese Communist Party, and it's being played back in China. So that's what you're texting, who you're texting, passwords, email accounts, everything on your phone, anything that you're typing in on emails or texting, that key logging is recording each word, each password, and so on. That's what that is.
So it sounds like it's not just the websites open through the TikTok app, but literally everything on the phone. Is that true?
You absolutely must believe and consider that anything coming out of China is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. That's what we as Americans and people in the West really confuse. We think that, China is just like the United States with the same type of management, government, values, and so on. And it's not. It's everything in China, whether it's a company, whether it's an app, is completely controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, which is 100% supported by a military operation. So my answer to the audience is, and what people need to understand, that TikTok is a military application. It's a weaponized espionage application to get every bit of information they possibly can off the phone, which they do. Your whereabouts, how you go about your day, your access to other people, access to technology, intellectual property, and things that you can be blackmailed on, and so on. So people need to understand that TikTok is a weaponized military application in the hands of our middle schoolers, our kids, our high school kids, and our young adults.
And so given all that information that we're giving away on these phones, what can the Chinese regime do with that?
They can use that information, really. Number one, the most important thing is to steal intellectual property. Secondly, to blackmail. Thirdly, it's a propaganda platform. You can see all these TikTok challenges, and most of them are very dangerous to our children. And to steal cars, to do challenges that puts we've lost a lot of kids to these TikTok challenges that come up about once a month. You have to understand it's a propaganda platform completely owned, operated, and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. And it's under the guise of this fun app that everybody loves to use, and it's spread like wildfire, and it's a lot of fun. So there's a lot of fun content on it, but you have to understand it's a military application, and it's going to achieve military results under the guise and under this facade of being a fun app.
And Casey, given the popularity, if people wake up to it and then delete the app, can the app still kind of access that information?
Yes, you have to understand, app developers can do anything. They can say, yeah, it's fully deinstalled, but the remnants are still there, still doing the information. So, the best advice is when you get a new phone, make sure that you don't do a restore back to it, because it's still going to restore those apps that were there, and even the instances of those apps that were still there. And you say, well, what do I do about my photographs and all that other stuff? Well, that's something that has to be weighed. Maybe you offload those photographs onto a USB or something like that, or into some cloud app. But you have to understand, people need to be aware that any technology coming out of China is completely controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party for decades has says the United States is their enemy, and they use that term enemy very strongly and very frequently. And you have to, but we'd like you to have this nice app. We'd like you to have these other nice apps like Spotify, like Zoom, all these other type of apps that are out there, as well as the technologies. If If it's manufactured in China with any type of electronics, you have to assume that it's weaponized. That's the first and foremost thing that the Chinese Communist Party does. And my company has been advisors on the Chinese Communist Party and China for a very long time. So people don't understand really the significance behind all of this.
That was Casey Fleming, CEO of intelligence and security strategy firm Black Ops Partners. And after the break, we hear more from him on how TikTok is working with an election center to fight misinformation heading into the midterms, what kind of information they're giving out, and how this ties into a bigger picture of hybrid warfare. That's all coming up in just a minute here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Next, we continue with our coverage with Casey Fleming, CEO of intelligence and security strategy firm Black Ops Partners. He touches on how TikTok is working with an election center to fight misinformation heading into the midterms, what that means, and how this ties into a bigger picture of hybrid warfare. Let's dive in. And speaking of kind of the weaponization aspect, it seems as the midterms are approaching, TikTok is partnering with a lot of other things like Ballotpedia and all that, which is usually what happens with a lot of social media platforms. But TikTok also has something called an election center where they're going to fight misinformation about the election. So what do you see that playing out as?
What could go wrong? You've got a Chinese Communist Party application that is going to be putting down disinformation. So it's a propaganda platform that's going to be putting down information on a U.S. election. So why would we ever allow a foreign entity that has been very strong that they are our enemy and we are their enemy? And why would we ever allow any technology other than U.S. technology to work on elections or anything that's important to our country and our freedom? So the second piece of that, you didn't ask, but I'm going to take you there. We really need laws and policies to say foreign influence it should never be allowed in the United States, and we need to shut it down immediately. Any type of foreign influence, whether it's a partnership with the Chinese Communist Party, whether they're buying real estate, whether they're buying companies or buying influence inside of universities, or paying off and buying lawmakers, lobbyists, and so on. We have to make sure that foreign influence is not allowed in the United States, because what's happening is the freedom of our children and our freedom as a country is in the balance, and that is the biggest issue right now, is this foreign influence.
And Casey, on the note of that foreign influence, what can be done? Because as you mentioned, some of the lawmakers are being bought and turned. So what really can be done?
Well, it all boils down to each American. This is happening on your watch. Your watch if you're a parent, your watch if you're, if you're an adult. It's happening on your watch. And the best thing that you can do, number one, is be educated, be alert to these things. This interview is a very good start if you're just starting on this journey of educating yourself on intelligence and counterintelligence. But the second thing is, when it comes down to voting, state, federal, local, school districts, and so on, vote those people in that are going to stop this foreign influence and this infiltration and subversion of the United States. And it's very, very serious. It's not something that's just started. It's been going on for decades, but it's actually peaking now. You're seeing a lot of things happen since COVID. You're seeing a lot of things happen as far as the aggressiveness of the Chinese Communist Party all around the world on many different fronts. And that's really called a thing called hybrid warfare. And every American should understand what hybrid warfare is. And they say, well, what is that? Hybrid warfare is achieving military objectives and political objectives through non-military means. So in other words, weakening your your adversary to where they're much easier to take over. And there's many, many different fronts. Fentanyl is the #1 killer of Americans, and Wuhan, China is the #1 fentanyl manufacturer in the world. And they send that fentanyl along with money laundering capabilities to the Mexican drug cartels. And what's recently come out is rainbow fentanyl. So, to focus on middle schoolers and high schoolers and college students to make it seem even more innocent, like a candy or something like that. So that's just one area. Religious warfare, all these different things, what people need to understand. Psychological warfare, information/cognitive warfare. That's what's happening on social media today. So understand, TikTok is not your friend. If you love your children, you love your family, get the TikTok app off your phone, your tablet, your computer, and urge everybody else to get off of it. We don't need TikTok to live and survive, but TikTok is in the hearts and minds of our middle schoolers and our high schoolers and our young adults, and it's something we cannot tolerate when it's on our watch.
And Casey, for those viewers who do want to find more information on the topic, where would you recommend they go?
Well, we actually do a service to people. We're the only people, I think, that connect the dots. And if you go to LinkedIn and you go to our company page, and that's Black Ops Partners company page, we list articles every day, half a dozen to a dozen articles every day on this specific subject. And nobody's going to try to sell you anything, but get family and friends to look at that. And if you need more information and you don't want to take my word for it, those are articles that are showing you the weakening of the free world, and the U.S. is part of that. And it connects the dots with those articles that give you specifics of what's happening, who's doing it, and so on. And it's an educational process, and it's something that you need to do. I'm speaking to the audience. It's something that you need to do and take on because it's happening on your watch. People say, well, how serious is it? And I say, well, if you think about it, this is World War II all over again, 1939, with 4 countries that are all aligned against the free world. Same as World War II, but the difference is now it's at the speed of technology and the stealth of hybrid warfare. So it's beyond very serious, and it's being kept under the surface by stealth warfare and by these stealth applications like TikTok that we're talking about, and those type of things.
And Casey, on that note about what the whole country can do, what would that take to really kind of stand up to the Chinese Communist regime? Is it decoupling, or what is it?
It is decoupling. If you look, China / the CCP. Whenever I speak about China, there are a lot of wonderful Chinese people, but you have to understand they are completely controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. If you don't worship the CCP and subscribe to their principles, you are put in internment camps and tortured, or your family's killed. And that's been going on for years with many other different groups that we don't need to get into here. But they are already decoupling. They've seen what's going on with the Ukraine war and the sanctions with the Ukraine war. And you look about a month after that, China started decoupling. Industries, finances, banks, they've recently delisted some of their largest stocks off the New York Stock Exchange. So you're seeing China is already decoupling, so they can insulate their economy as they go forward with a potential war with Taiwan, which may involve the free world. So they are absolutely looking at that, and you have to look at decoupling as a very serious thing. So is it going to get down to the good guys versus the bad guys? I think you're absolutely seeing that now, and you're going to see that play out much more in the future. Decoupling is a part of that, whether we continue it on our side or whether China's already doing it. CCP is already doing it. They're forcing us into it as well. Even some of our largest investment firms took major hits because of China decoupling and China lockdowns and so on. CEOs of companies, even the FBI and MI5, which is the FBI in London, came out in early July and came out and basically put out more detail that China is the most significant threat to the free world. And that's pretty much never been done, where the FBI and MI5 come out in a joint press release, and actually on London soil, to be able to come out with that release to business leaders, which are CEOs and boards of directors. So that's the level of significance that we're talking about here.
And Katie, given that level of significance, and even with China already kind of starting the decoupling process, there is still some arguing in the U.S. that decoupling on our end would really hurt us. So what would you say to them?
Decoupling on our end absolutely will hurt us, but also decoupling on the other side, China, Russia, and so on, is going to hurt them a whole lot more. Here's the point. We've painted ourselves into this corner over years of globalization and company profits and so on. We've painted ourselves into that corner with supply chain being, China being the world's manufacturer, right? So we've kind of done it to ourselves, and there's a time when we're going to have to pay some of that back. And so it will come back with higher prices. It's going to come back with not having some things that you're used to having in the past. But it's going to be forced, whether the CCP forces it, which they are, it's early on, or whether we enforce it. The question is, it's going to happen. Do we want to be ahead of the curve or behind the curve? Being ahead of the curve is probably the right thing to do. So make no mistake, it will be painful, but China will be going through a much worse pain than the United States and the free world. But you're going to see the free world being, in my opinion, you're going to see the free world having their own economy and internet and so on, and you're going to see the non-free world having their own economy and so on. And you're going to see those be polar opposites, where they're totalitarian regimes versus free societies and freedom.
And Casey, given all these different areas, say whether it's TikTok, the decoupling, or the hybrid warfare, it sounds like it ultimately comes down to a shift in mindset. So how would you sum it up?
It's absolutely a shift in mindset. It's a shift in culture. It's a change, a shift in change in how we think about security and how we think about data. You know, when a large war came about in the past, people said, no, it's not happening. No, they're in denial. No, we're against the war. We're against this. And then eventually you're in the war and everything the clouds start to clear, the fog starts to clear, and it's like, okay, we're in a war. It is against good versus evil. And, we must all get involved and we must prevail. That's really what you're seeing right now. If you know how to read the tea leaves, which we're trying to help on this broadcast, it's actually showing that piece of it. So, unfortunately, that's the direction that the world is moving towards, and companies need to be prepared for it. They need to re-gauge their risk and look at risk very differently. But it's a culture change with our companies, with our culture in our country, with our politics. We're all one, and we're all together in this against a collective enemy that they frame as themselves. We don't call them the enemy. We're very careful not to do that. But China and the CCP, they say that we are their arch enemy, and we are standing in their way from global domination and the Chinese dream that the Chinese people deserve and they're entitled to.
And Casey, there is the saying that being forewarned is forearmed. So it seems, if war is inevitable, being in denial doesn't help. So what would be some steps Americans can take then?
Great question. Number one is to stay educated. Broadcasts like these are the way to stay educated. Go to the company page on LinkedIn, and that'll really, connect a lot of dots for you. But, it's happening on your watch. I'm speaking to the audience. And stay educated and do what you can with your power. Get involved in maybe a movement to wake up on this thing. In my opinion, big tech is against us. Big tech is against the United States and freedom. They're all part of this new world order. They're all part of this censorship where the normal American, the average American, has no voice anymore. It's what they want you to see in mainstream media. It's what they want you to see on social media, and they are programming you, your children, your college kids, the way that they want you to be programmed. And that is not, in a lot of cases, middle America and the rest of America, that's not what we're in this for. We're in this for our Constitution, and there's no other country like us. We're in this to defend our Constitution, and we understand and know that is very critical to our survival as a nation and our free world. And that's exactly what's under attack and under threat today.
Casey, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
That was Casey Fleming, CEO of intelligence and security strategy firm Black Ops Partners. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you soon.